click the recording button and hand it over to you.
Okay, let's see. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Just a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. Our policy still accepts stills and excerpts from the video may be used by the club in its public relations and social media outreach. Exceptions can be made upon request by individual members. Most video is shared within the group as member education. Welcome to Online Presenters, where learning skills for better webinars and online events is our focus. We want to thank Ring Central for hosting this meeting or providing the software for us. Compliments through David. And, Ring Central has various different features. Other than a Zoom type platform, they also have Office phones and other integrated software, including the GLIP team messaging, which some of us use. Remind everybody that Ring Central is winning in the cloud. Tips is so you don't get feedback through your microphone into the speakers or the speakers into the microphones. It's best to use a headset or noise canceling microphones. Mute your mic when you're not speaking or it's not your turn to speak. The controls in the lower left-hand corner of your screen usually. You can also toggle your video on and off so we can see you. If you have to do something that might be distracting, something personal, or you need to get up from your chair and do something, just turn your video off so we know you're away from your chair or you're busy doing something else. There are different view formats. You can have the speaker view with just a few icons on the side, or the group view where everybody is on one screen. And, the screen holds a maximum of 25 people. If we have more than 25, you'll see a little arrow on the right-hand side or left-hand side to move to another screen of 25 people. Please be careful of the time. Watch for who the timer is. Keep track of the timing video. If you're speaking, whether you're evaluator, speaker, or table topics, I always recommend somebody use their own timing device in addition to looking for the timer. Sometimes the timer on the screen is difficult to find. The timer is going to use cue cards, such as what I'm holding up right now. I've got a set of colored cards. And I use a sound device to clink like a glass, which I still have to get since I am timer tonight also. If you're a guest, you want to join the club, we recommend you attend at least 2 meetings as a guest. And there's a place on the website to indicate to join or RSVP as a guest. This is an advanced club. It's not for absolute beginners, but we do make exceptions for people that have speaking skills from outside of Toastmasters. The normal requirement is 6 Toastmaster speeches, but we can make exceptions. We do ask a person who wants to join, give us a table topics type 1 to 2 minute explanation of why they want to join. And now it's showtime, so we'll get started with the meeting. And who's our, Deborah Carr was our Toastmaster tonight. She's not, there she is. So Deborah, I'll turn the meeting, no, who is it?
It's Rod.
Oh, it's table topics, I'm sorry. Rod Moore is, right. Yes, I'm sorry, Rod. So I'll turn the meeting over to you, Rod, your Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and it's a pleasure to be your Toastmaster this evening, coming from all the way from sunny Noosa, which you can see in the background here. And I believe our theme today is the National Get Out of the Doghouse Day, and I'll be telling you a few fun facts about that as we proceed through the meeting. Apparently, it's celebrated on the third Monday in July. Who would have known? The day is for being sweet and kind to your partner with the ultimate goal of getting yourself back in their good graces. When you're fighting with your partner, the days are just crappier, apparently. So we're all agreeing to stop holding whatever grudge you have on this one beautiful day. So I think there's something in that for all of us. So we've got an exciting meeting coming up with a couple of great speeches, toasts, and our table topics, of course. Currently, we have Speaker 3 position open. Is there anybody who has a speech ready to go that would like to take that spot? I'll give you 5 seconds to have a think about that. Doesn't look like it. Okay. If you do want to, then just send me a message. So what we'll do now is just introduce each of our supporting roles during the evening or this morning. First of all, our R counter is Lewis Brown. Lou, would you mind telling us what your role is, please?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I just finished a bite of my dinner. Good timing. As our counter, I will be counting the ahs, ers, ums, filler words, crutch words that folks use throughout the evening. Sorry, evening here, day there, afternoon, wherever you are, for all of the various speech segments. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster. Oh, and I'll provide a report at the end of the meeting, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Lou. Next up, we have our timer, is our President, Jim Dent. Jim, would you mind just running through the timing with us?
Yes, I'll be tracking the time. The speakers are typically 5 to 7 minutes, unless they specify different time. Table topics is 1 to 2 minutes, and evaluations are 2 to 3 minutes. I have a green card I'll hold up, and I have a dinger, and then I have a yellow card, and I have a red card. So hopefully those colors look good. They look like green and yellow. Sometimes green and yellow look the same, but I think these look different. Is that correct? Good. So back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Jim. Appreciate that. And coming up next is our grammarian. Jim Barber is our grammarian. Jim, would you mind letting us know what your role's all about?
Not at all, Mr. Toastmaster. My fellow Toastmasters, as the grammarian this evening, I will be listening for exceptional uses of the English language. I trust that it will be exceptionally good uses of the English language and not exceptionally bad. I will also be listening for the word of the day, which is cliché. And as part of my duties as grammarian, I will be hoping that everyone will use the word cliché, but that you won't use any clichés yourself, because if you've heard it a million times, don't use clichés. They're bad. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Jim. Appreciate that. And one of the important aspects of online meetings, of course, is having a watcher to see how we all present on camera. Our watcher tonight is Lois. Lois, would you mind just informing us about your role this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster of the Day. As you can see, not only will I be watching you, but my background will be watching all that you do. And I will give a report at the end, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much. And I'm guessing from all those eyes on us today, we will have to be on our best behaviour or we'll end up in the doghouse. And next up, we have our vote counter. Our vote counter is going to be Monica tonight. Monica, would you just give us the details on your role?
For a vote counter, I will wait until the end of the speaking session, and the timer will submit the times, and then you can vote for your favorite speaker. We'll do the same thing for table topics, and then the last time for evaluation. You can send it to me privately. So on the chat box, you can select my name and just send me the vote once the times have confirmed that they're good.
Thank you very much, Monica. Thank you very much, Monica. And we have our chat monitor this evening is Elaine. Elaine, if you could let us know what you will be doing in your role.
Well, I will be shifting my gaze from time to time over to the white panel that sits next to the screen, monitoring back channel conversations, comedic conversations on in the background, and taking note of anything in particular we don't want to be missing, links and such. Back to you, Rod.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Elaine. And our general evaluator this evening is all the way from Brisbane, our very own Graham Cairns. Graham, would you kindly give us an update on the role of general evaluator?
Thank you, Rod. My role tonight will be to be the general evaluator, to evaluate those parts of the meeting which have not been evaluated by our evaluators, for example. So I'll be offering suggestions for not only all of the ancillary roles, but particularly for the evaluators, giving them suggestions on how they can become even better evaluators. And I'll also be evaluating the role of the Toastmaster, so watch out.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Graham. So we've got a great meeting coming up. We've got 2 speakers lined up for this evening. Our speaker number 1 is Norman Dow, and Norman's evaluator is David Carr. David, are you able to give us the details on Norman's speech and the purpose of his speech, please?
In short, no. I haven't studied that, so I don't have that in front of me.
That's okay. I've got the details here, so I'll go through it if you like. So Norman is doing leadership development level 3, increasing knowledge with a focus on using descriptive language. The title of Norman's speech is The Memphis Miracle. So last week, Norman tells us we were inspired by Roger Fung's speech on racial reconciliation. And tonight, Norman will tell a story about racial reconciliation in Pentecostal denominations that give all of us a roadmap for changing things that on the surface seem impervious to change. Would you please help me welcome our first speaker this evening, Norman Dow.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Share the screen. Let's see. Share screen. Okay, the Memphis Miracle. The Memphis Miracle. The United States was founded with something called the Manifest Destiny. It was an idea that this continent, from the Atlantic to the Pacific, there was a destiny among Europeans to control and to manage this continent, and other peoples were either adjuncts to that management and control, or perhaps even impediments, like the Native Americans, who quite often were eliminated. This was the story of the country for a long time. But then, this particular narrative, which actually had been supported by the church, that provided theological cover for the manifest destiny, was rocked by an 8.0 earthquake that shook the religious establishment. The epicenter was 312 Azusa Street, Los Angeles, California. The date was April of 1906. The earthquake was the Azusa Street revival. Fire fell from heaven, almost like the Pentecostal fires had fallen on Pentecost in Jerusalem 1,876 years before. People weren't concerned about being black or white, but they were just concerned about the things of God. There were supernatural manifestations that rocked the place. Healings, deliverance, prophecy, tongues. People just wanted God. People flocked from around the world, from Australia, from England, from other parts of Europe, from the United States, to this little church in LA. But people were scandalized. The media was scandalized. The rest of the church was scandalized, partially because of the supernatural manifestations, but largely because whites and blacks were unified in worshiping together. That's the way it started. But as time went on, there was a divergence. A divergence between the blacks who worshiped in one way and the whites who worshiped elsewhere. The Assembly of God is the largest white denomination. The Church of God in Christ, the largest black denomination. This divergence was formalized in 1948 when all of the white denominations got together, the white Pentecostal denominations got together and created an umbrella organization. They didn't even invite the blacks, even though the Church of God in Christ was twice the size of the Assembly of God. In 1992, the head of the umbrella organization of Pentecostal Fellowships of North America said, "This is wrong. There has to be a difference. We have to reconcile between our black and white brothers." And he decided that they would actually come together and work at bringing about racial reconciliation. The place and the date was chosen, October 17, 1994. Blacks and whites gathered in Memphis at the convention center, a mile and a half from the Lorraine Hotel where Dr. Martin Luther King had been shot. There, the historians gave reports about what had happened, about the racial sin and how people had hurt each other in the decades that had preceded the event. It was an exciting time as people wept and repented. But then the last night, something happened. There was a message in tongues that came forth by a black Pentecostal minister. It was interpreted by Jack Hayford, a white guy from LA. The end of the message was, "Look, look, I by my spirit am flowing in two streams into one, the two becoming one. If you can see from the heaven side of things, you're being purified, and not only is there a new purity coming in your midst, but there will be a multitude more who will gather in this one mighty river." A young man who was an extra, he was really a substitute, was felt led by the Holy Spirit to wash an old bishop's feet. He grabbed the basin and rushed the platform. And as he washed the bishop's feet, there was a time of repentance and crying and praise broke out in the organization, in the meeting. Something happened that night. That umbrella organization was actually dissolved. And from the best of the black denominations and the best of the white, they created a new organization called the Pentecostal Churches and Charismatic Churches of North America. They didn't force the blacks to give up theirs and join the white. They didn't force the whites to join the black. They created, out of the best, one new unified organization. And that gave us a prescription for radical change. This is a lesson we can learn, fellow Toastmasters. When you really want to change, deal with the truth. It may be unpleasant, it may be difficult, but deal with the truth. Once you have dealt with the truth, you need to be sorry for the mess. There needs to be sorrow for what the problem was. And then when there's sorrow, then there has to be a commitment to action. Courageous action. Truth plus sorrow plus action equals change. Thank you.
Wonderful job, Norman. Thank you very much. Very passionate speech there. Very much enjoyed it. Our second speaker for this evening is Ben Ratji. Ben is coming all the way from South Korea, and his evaluator this evening is Dagmara. Dagmara, do you have Ben's speech details and the purpose for his speech?
Yes, I have. Ben will be speaking from the Motivational Strategies Level 1 Icebreaker. The title is 3 Simple Tips for Writing Your Book. And his to introduce himself to the club and learn the basic structure of a public speech. Thank you. Back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dagmara.
Is this a 46-minute speech?
Yes, I was remiss of me not to mention the timing previously, but the timing for Ben's speech is green on 4 minutes, yellow on 5, and red on 6. So this is an icebreaker speech. Timer. So would you please help me welcome Ben Ratji with his speech, 3 simple tips for writing your book. Over to you, Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you. First of all, a quick show of hands, everybody. How many of you want to write a book at some point in your future? Quick show of hands. So many of you. And how many of you have already written a book? Yeah, quite a lot of you too, right? So today I want to share with you 3 simple tips on how you can write a book as well. Just a little bit about myself. I'm not the greatest writer or greatest author, but here are a couple of the books that I've written over the years, right? One of them was a bestseller in Korea. Another one won 2 book awards in the US, right? But again, I'm not the greatest writer, but I just want to share a couple of ideas and tips with you. Yeah. So the first tip that I always have when you want to write your own book is you got to ask yourself the right questions, right? So one of the questions you definitely have to ask yourself, how is this book going to help other people? You know, who is my reader? Who would be excited about this book? Who could this book really, really help? Right? Whenever you start a new book, you really got to gain clarity. Because if the book is not going to help somebody in a specific way, right, it's not really worth anybody's time. Right? So you really got to think about who is my reader? How can I help them? What do they really, really want? And the other question I would really focus on if you want to write your own book is, what am I passionate about? Right? So I recommend never write anything that you're not passionate about, because writing a book is sometimes a very long, quite stressful process. Right? For some writers, it takes 3 months, for some 6, for some it takes a year. For some writers, it even takes multiple years to write their book. So if you're not passionate about the topic, you won't make it through the time. And that's where all those manuscripts that end up on the shelves will end up, right? So don't do it. Start with something you're really passionate about. The second tip that I have for you is you got to set very consistent writing goals, right? So you got to decide every week, how much can I focus on writing? And some people are far more consistent than others, right? Some people really say, okay, I can spend half an hour every single day writing, or maybe it's an hour a day, right? But then there are other people, they're more, how can I say, events-based. So they make it a weekly event where they say, okay, every Saturday I'm going to write from 9 to 12. I'm going to spend 3 or 4 hours writing. But you got to know your own style, and you got to do what works for you. And along with that writing, time comes actually the place. Right? How many of you know Stephen King? Quick show of hands. Yeah, stupid question, right? Yeah, one of the most successful writers of our time, of course. And right, his habit is that every time he would lock himself into his writing room, into his office, in his house, and spend 3 or 4 hours there every single day in the quietness, uninterrupted. Right? My personal way has always been quite different. I get quite bored in the empty room. So I've always written my books mostly in coffee shops where there were lots of people around me, where there was a lot of movement going on, but I really had to focus on it. Right? This movement around me really created this creative flow, the stimuli from the outside as well. So again, you got to know your style. Yeah. The third tip that I would give you is you really have to learn how can you deal with writer's block. Yeah, how many of you have experienced writer's block before? Quick show of hands one time. Or when you created something, maybe creative block. I think most of us, right? And over the years, me, myself, I had to learn many, many techniques on how to overcome it when it's happening. And I just quickly want to share with you 2 ways that have worked very well for me. One is I learned this course, it's called The Artist's Way, right? It's really a book, but really it's a course, right? That takes you over multiple weeks, you do multiple writing exercises, and it really helps you deal with your emotions, you know, to gain clarity to what's blocking you, what's holding you back, so you're able to release that and get over that writer's block, right? So that's the first thing that has worked for me. The second thing that has worked for me, I've done meditation over, I don't know, on and off over the last 15 years. And it was always very beneficial. Does anyone here meditate? Quick show of hands. Couple of you, yeah. Now, I've always done a little bit, stopped, done a little bit, stopped. You know, it was kind of a back and forth. But over the last year, I learned a new meditation method that has worked much, much better for you. It's called natural stress relief, but it's very similar to transcendental meditation. So this one has really worked for me. I get huge benefits from it. The easiest way to explain the benefit is after I do this way of meditating, it's kind of like sitting in a jacuzzi for 50 minutes. It feels that good, and you come out refreshed, very focused. So it's been very different from any of the other meditation methods that I've learned. Yeah, so that has helped me overcome writer's block or the creative block in general as well. So yeah, these are my 3 tips. I hope they help you with writing your next book or your first book, depending on you, right? If it inspired you and it helped you, send me an email in the future if you bring out your book, okay? Thank you so much. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you.
Wonderful job. Thank you, Ben. Some great tips there. Some great tips. I appreciate that. So if you could now vote for our speaker of the day, send your votes to Monica through the private chat. I believe Monica's having a couple of problems, but should get your votes okay through the chat. While you're taking a moment to do that, I'll share with you a little bit more about National Get Out of the Doghouse Day. The day takes place annually on the 3rd Monday in July, and who knows why they chose that day. The phrase "in the doghouse" usually means in disgrace or out of favour. The original idea came from the symbolism in the 1911 Peter Pan novel written by J. Barrie. In chapter 16, when Mr. Darling goes out and sleeps in the dog kennel, remorseful of not paying enough attention to his family and children, who were then kidnapped. So that's where the idea came from originally. Moving right along, and hopefully we'll get ourselves out of the doghouse by the end of the meeting here today. Our next session is our Topics Master session being run by Deborah Carr. And Deborah, possibly, given that we don't have a third speaker, we may be able to fit in 1 or 2 extra table topics. So I would now like to hand it over to our Table Topics Master of the evening, Deborah Carr.
Well, everyone, it is Get Out of the Doghouse Day. So tonight, what we're going to do is just share a few tips on getting in and how you got in, maybe, or how you really got out. I was a men's barber for over 30 years. And on Thursdays, we had, generally speaking, it was Thursdays. First thing in the morning, the phone would light up with guys that had to get in. And we had just a few guys. But we had a waiting list, so it was rather unique. But these guys would stay at the bar too late and get a kitchen haircut in the middle of the night from some drunk lady. And they looked like they got hit with a chainsaw, to be honest. We were always straightening them out. So Lois, tell us if you had to get one of those haircuts in a hurry and how you got out of a mess if your haircut was messed up.
Thank you, Madam Table Topic Master. If your haircut is messed up, you're in trouble. Because for a woman, it takes her whole identity. It's like, what? You did what? But I have to tell you, I've learned over the years to deal with this. I went in a couple of weeks ago as a redhead, and I came out as a blonde. And I looked at myself and I said, haven't been a blonde in a while. Do I like this? I'm not really sure I like it, but you know what? I look at it this way. There are some really important things in life, and what color your hair is not one of them. What color kind of cut you get isn't really all that important, because you know what? Your hair grows. So if they cut it too short or they make it bad, you know what? You find another hairdresser, you find something that works. But I've always thought, well, I can live with it. It's only 4, maybe 5 weeks. Yeah, this is something I can deal with. I don't have to look at Jimmy Dent and say, well, I'm not at that stage. I'm at a much different place in my life, and I'm happy. So you know what? I talk to my hairdresser. And when it's all done and I get to put my glasses on, because up until that point, I can't see a thing. When I put my glasses on and I look at the color, I go, oh, well, this is different. It's not purple. It's not orange. I can live with this a little bit. Life is good. Madam Table Topic Master.
Well, throughout the years, I saw that, people got in the doghouse as a child, as a teenager, and right on through. It could have been with an instructor. It could have been with your parents, and it naturally came with the partner, 9 times out of 10. And we experienced quite a few conversations in the barbershop about that, but we'll leave those there. So sometimes that doghouse is pretty frilly. I mean, it's got a nice roof, it's got windows, and it's even got curtains. So, Jim Barber, tell me, when you were in a not too bad of a situation, but you had to get out of that doghouse, tell us how you got out. Or you can tell us how you got in.
Oh, goodness gracious. Madam Toastmaster, my fellow Toastmasters, I've been married for, 33 years. So have I ever been in the doghouse? Oh, yes, indeed. You can be assured of that. How I get out of the doghouse, that's a different challenge altogether. Oh, I'm thinking of the standard ones, but unfortunately they're cliches and I don't want to go that route of candy or flowers or something like that. The ideal thing would be to find out what I did wrong and apologize. Unfortunately, sometimes it's very difficult to find out what I did wrong without aggravating the situation further. So I found that a general purpose apology, I apologize for anything that I said, might have said, will say, might say in the future, anything like that. I apologize basically for doing everything except I apologize also for that. And that sometimes works, but not always. A global apology, absolutely. But true confession time, I'm in the doghouse right now, and I'm still trying to figure out how to get out of it. So I don't really know. I will report back to you and let you know how things go. I hope it'll be a little bit better. Madam Toastmaster.
Oh, we do know how that works. Timing's everything, isn't it? We always get the questions we need to, that we are supposed to get. Other times when people were in the barbershop, and I had the very best team and the very best business partner. And my business partner got into some trouble after he partied a little bit too much at one of our hair salons, or hair shows, and came home really tattered and torn. And his wife sat and actually came up behind him when he had when the drunk hangover headaches, and smacked cymbals in his head, right behind him. So Lou, tell me, possibly you had something that you needed to get out of that doghouse that wasn't quite so well insulated, no ruffly curtains or wallpaper. A little bit not so fancy. It's kind of tough.
Madam Topics Master. I think I was so busy counting ahs and ums, I didn't get the complete topic, the complete question. But you know what? Like a true bridger, I will not ask you to repeat, because we
Okay.
don't do that here in Toastmasters.
And
We are
we
supposed
have
to
extra
listen.
time. So that's good. All right.
Exactly.
A rough
But, you know,
night.
speaking of hair, I would like to first comment that I'm a little upset with Lois for kind of coming down on us bald men, because you know what? We actually are an important part of society. You know, whenever there is a shampoo deficit, you don't have to worry about us using what little supply there is. We don't need to worry about shampoo. Quite frankly, I can just take soap and go over this here. So Lois, and anyone else who needs shampoo, we are more than happy to give you any and all shampoo, conditioners, anything you need for your hairdo, whether or not it came out right or not, that's fine. And any other hair product. Quite frankly, when I was younger, being a product of the 80s, 90s, you know, the kind of fads that were in back then in terms of hairstyles, I used to gel it up to the max. I'd have, I guess, the equivalent of the flock of seagulls gentleman, if you recall who that was. He had that big hairdo thing kind of sticking up, and it looked like a parrot to some degree. Man, I had my hair gel, and I would just do it all up, and quite frankly, I used to go through probably a whole bottle in a week. So in that case, I really was a very good consumer in the case of hair gel. However, now I don't have to worry about that. So everyone feel free to make use of all the shampoo items that you need, because Jim, Dent, I'm looking around at the Rod, who else? I guess that's it for here tonight. We are all happy to let you have it, Madam Topics Master.
Nothing like spinning a topic. So, Elaine, there's definitely times in all of our lives, but especially women, that we have to kind of face it because we've held on to it long enough, and we've held ourselves inside that doghouse and held ourselves prisoner. How do you let things go? Get out.
Madam Toastmaster. No, Madam Topics Toastmaster. The way that I make a shift getting myself out of, I'll call it an emotional doghouse, where I'm feeling really down, or my inner critic is kind of going on and on and on and on. I do sometimes resort to a laughter yoga practice, which is an interesting balance of smiling and then completely flipping it over 180 degrees to, like, you know, comedy, tragedy. The interesting thing about this practice of laughter yoga is when you sustain this physicality of intentional laughing for more than 5 minutes, it shifts your body chemistry. So even if, you know, you've had this chatter going on, you've been feeling like crap, making the decision to do something physically different that shifts your body chemistry can really change the course of your whole day. So I might tell you more about laughter yoga on another occasion, but that's sometimes what I do to free myself from my mental prison. I laugh. Back to you, Madam Table Topics Master.
I have one more. Is timing okay, Rod?
Deborah?
Okay, good.
Deborah?
Yes.
Can you check with our guest, Sunny, about whether or not she wants to give her table topic speech?
Yes. Sunny, are you ready for your speech? Oh, I know.
I thought you didn't have to give a speech if you were already in Toastmasters.
Okay.
I mean, I thought that if you were, like, if you've done more than 10 speeches or 20 or 30 speeches.
That is true. It was my fault. I had some names confused. So if you've given all those, then no, but you could be our table topic contestant if you want.
I can do something for table. Go ahead, ask me.
Well, okay. This one is when that doghouse is not insulated. It's outside in the winter. There is no windows left in it and not even a door on it. It is bold, nasty, and freezing out. And there's a stake and you've got your chain wrapped around your neck. Now, this was for a guy, but you get it since you offered. So please tell us, if you slithered out of that bugger, how did you get out?
Madam Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, being in a doghouse and you've got that chain wrapped around your neck. While I may not be able to identify with that right now, it does remind me of my two four-legged babies, Missy and Maxie, who would live in their doghouse, and occasionally they would get out. And Missy would get out because she was pretty fast and she could jump high. And then her sister Maxie would have problems sometimes. But their dog houses, come to think of it, is something that gave me a problem. I actually had to go on Pinterest because I was so concerned for my dogs living outside in this Mississippi heat that I decided that I would try to get them a dog house that had air conditioning. So on Pinterest, I found different houses that they actually could live in that were air conditioned, that also had some of the amenities of a real home. And they also had a door to get in and out. They actually had one that had a little deck. And so my dogs were pretty spoiled, and they probably were the envy of all their other dogs, like Rover and Max down the street. So I would say that they wouldn't even want to ever leave their doghouse since it had air conditioning. And as far as chains around the neck, they even had their own jewelry. So that's as close as I come to having that type of experience. Back to you, Madam Table Topics Master.
And Mr. Toastmaster, as I turn back to you, the nice thing is tomorrow is Peach Ice Cream Day and also Yellow Pig Day. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Wonderful job there with some of those topics, and boy, am I glad I didn't get one of them. Terrific job. Pink, did you say Yellow Pig tomorrow? That's going to be an interesting day as well. So our timers have come in. Thank you very much, Jim. Lois, 1 minute and 6. Jim, 1 minute 36. Lou, 2 minutes and 7. Go the bald men. Elaine, 1 minute 39. And Sunny, a wonderful 1 minute and 38. So well done, everyone. If you could cast your votes to Monica, send them via private chat, that would be terrific. But a great job all round. Well done. Now we move on to our evaluation section of the evening. And our first evaluator is David Card. David will be evaluating Norman's speech. So please help me welcome David Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster of the Day, fellow Toastmasters, and particularly Norman. Norman, so I did go back and look up the requirements for the speech after you began or along the way. So this is a speech where you're supposed to practice using descriptive words and literary elements such as plot and setting. And so I think you certainly got us off on a good start there by bringing us back to, what are we talking about, the 1800s, I guess, the time of American expansion to the West, the vision of manifest destiny, and telling this story about the fire where people forgot about distinctions between black and white, and the survivors were motivated to worship together. Or at least that's how I understood the story. I think actually probably you could have slowed it down a little bit. And I'm not actually sure whether it's my fault for not paying close enough attention or your fault for how you told the story, but I lost the thread of that a little bit in terms of exactly what had happened in that fire and why it had caused the inspiration that you said it did. So I thought that was a very strong beginning to your story. Beyond that, I got a little bit confused. You said something about things happening in LA, which I took to be Los Angeles, but I wasn't sure if that matched up with the story because I believe your title was the Mississippi Miracle. I guess the miracle was more supposed to be the coming together of the branches of the church. And this is an area where I think we sometimes have challenges in Toastmasters where we don't necessarily all come from the same background or the same religion or political beliefs or any of that. So sometimes putting ourselves in the frame of reference of the speaker can be a challenge. But your job as a communicator is to bring us into that picture and make us understand what is important about the story that you're telling. So, I'm sorry, I'm trying to page through and make sure I can find the timer who says that I'm getting there. I'm getting close to the end of wrapping this up. I think the portions actually towards the end of your speech where you're trying to explain the significance of coming up on stage and washing the minister's feet, those were harder for me to identify, and I somewhat lost the thread of the story and why things were happening as they were. But it was a strong speech. I think it's a strong story, and you can work on it some more. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, David. A solid evaluation there. Much appreciated. I was remiss that I didn't read out the times for the evaluation. So our timer has been giving us a green light on 2 minutes, yellow on 2:30, and red on 3 minutes. So thank you, timer. Our next evaluator, evaluating Ben's speech on 3 tips to writing a book, is Dagmara. So Dagmara, over to you.
Toastmasters, and especially you, Ben, who doesn't want to write a book, right? You ask this question and you engage us right away in your icebreaker. So that's a great way how you chose your topic, because not only you introduced yourself, but you made the speech very relevant for the entire club and for every member in this club. So I thought this was a very, very engaging topic that you choose to present yourself. Very, very strong point, because it's so difficult to introduce yourself in 4 to 6 minutes. So that was really great. I really love your clear structure. I know where is the beginning. It was pretty strong. Then you went to introduction. You gave very good tips and very practical. I love how you speak. You have a very clear language. You convey the idea in a clear way. And the tips, there were 3 of them as far as I remember. So very practical, very useful, and it was just the topic was very, very engaging. The only thing that I would recommend you to improve would be your voice. So as I said, it's your strong point because you speak in a very clear manner, but from the other side, you didn't use too much vocal variety. So I would love to see more pauses or maybe introducing some suspense by sharing some difficult experience that you had with writing your books, because it was all so beautiful and all roses. I don't believe it was the case. So if you could get more personal, I think your speech would be even more interesting. And maybe more strong ending. I would say great introduction, then you had great development, and it was so strong that maybe the end was not so clear. But overall, Ben, great presentation, a great relevant topic for an icebreaker. Congratulations again. You made it very relevant. It's very difficult to choose the topic for your icebreaker. Congratulations.
Wonderful job. Thank you, Dagmara. Now, somebody please remind me, do we vote on our evaluators at this point? We do. Wonderful.
We need a timing report.
We need a timing report, so I'll throw over to you.
Just posted it.
Just
both
posted.
are in time.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jimmy. David, in a time of 3 minutes 28, and Dagmara in a time of 2 minutes 51. So if you could send your votes through to Monica, that would be terrific. Moving right along, I think we're making good time. So I'd now like to ask for reports from our various role holders today. So first of all, I'd like to ask our grammarian for their report.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Toastmaster. There were no, I'm happy to report, there were no egregious mistakes in grammar or any sort of spoken word tonight. On the good side, Norman, your title, I liked the Memphis Miracle, a good example of alliteration. That was very powerful. I liked that. Also, Deborah, I think it was Deborah as Table Topics Master, who used the phrase slithered out of the doghouse. That was very descriptive. I liked that. There were no cliches used tonight that I caught. There were also no uses of the word cliche that I caught, but if I missed it, I apologize. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, so I'm going to end my report at that point. Mr. Toastmaster.
Wonderful job, Jim. Thank you very much. Next up, we have our watcher, the lady with all the eyes and soon to be loaded up with lots of hair care products from Lou Brown. Please help welcome Lois.
I'm going to look for my box from you, Lou. And I just want to make a quick note for Jim Barber that you really are good at apologizing. Even if he doesn't hear it, he apologizes to us all. Good job, Jim. All right, as the watcher, it was my responsibility to look carefully at how we are presented in the screens. Some of us had really solid, nice backgrounds. Roger, John, Graham, and David, they're solid. There's no wrinkles in it. Norman, you've got this wavy thing going through your background. I'm not really sure what's going on there, but maybe you can, if it's your wallpaper, okay, it's your wallpaper. John, there was a question if you could use a color other than red, because somebody got confused and thought that their time was up and ended their table topic within 3 minutes because of that. Thank you. Monica, your screen's just a tad dark. Every now and then, Graham, your head would be down like this or you would be cut off. So we're losing some of you and we want to see your shining face all the time. And I do want to say how beautiful the light shimmered off Jim Barber's hair. And we had no bright reflection from Rod, Jimmy, or Lou. Mr. Toastmaster.
Just as well, I say, just as well. No shining lights there. Next up, I'd like to go to Elaine, our chat monitor, to give us an update on everything that's gone on in the chat.
Mr. Toastmaster of the evening, Rod, this is a very interesting watching role this evening. It was particularly helpful that Ben explained that the natural stress release reference that he made was to a course rather than a book, but he did find meditation helpful. So that's there for us to remember. Also, there was lots of banter back and forth during table topics. Lois gave a particularly wonderful laser paraphrase of Jim Barber's Way Out of the Doghouse. She said, "The global apology," and that was excellent. There were lots of chuckles also about getting out of the cat house. What's a cat house? So we have lots of good-spirited folks bringing their levity to the chat. Also, Rod and Lois and Dagmar were cheering on bald men. Go. And so thank you, Lou, very much for lighting up Table Topics once again with most enlightening conversation. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster of the evening.
Thank you very much, Elaine. And I did happen to notice out of the corner of my eye, somebody made the comment about bald men being far superior in intellect. I can't remember. Maybe I made that up. Not to worry. Now I'd like to go to our timer, being Jimmy Dent, to give us an overview of our timing, Jimmy.
Sure, I'll give an overview of it. Everybody was in time where everything. The two speakers, Norman was 7 minutes 11 seconds. Ben was 5 minutes 48 seconds. For the table topics, Lois was 1 minute 5 seconds. Jim Barber was 1 minute 36 seconds. Lou was 2 minutes 7 seconds. Elaine was 1 minute 39 seconds. And Sonny was 1 minute 38 seconds. For the evaluators, David was 3 minutes 28. He just got in there within time. And Dagmara was 2 minutes 51 seconds. Everybody was within time.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Timer. I think this is the first Toastmasters meeting I've ever been to where everybody's in time. So well done, everyone. Now we'd like to go to Monica to give us the results of the voting. Monica, I know you're having some technical issues earlier. Well, hang on a sec. Just before we go to Monica, Lou Brown, you've got your hand up.
Mr. Topics Master, by the way, quick note, it helps for us bald men to have some wipes on hand so that we're not reflecting.
Absolutely.
For the poor watcher to catch us on that. Okay, everyone had some ahs and ums, and I'm sure I had some myself. I didn't make note of it because I was speaking, but I'm sure they were there. But everyone did a great job in terms of the ahs and ums, and that they were not a lot of them. I will say the winner tonight, though, in terms of that was Dagmara. Perhaps you were just speaking quickly, I'm not sure, and they just started tumbling out. But I don't have a standard to work from in terms of your prior possible egregiousness in that way, so I can't say if you've improved or not. But you know what? It didn't really affect your speech. Now, in terms of sentence starters, and so, a lot of us had ands and so's as our sentence starters. Ben, you had right as a sentence ender. So beware of ending your sentences with right. A few folks had double starts, Ben and Dagmara. Lois, I noted nothing, and every time you spoke in terms of ahs or ums, so you get the prize for the night. Woohoo! Great job. And Norman, I also would like to say, in terms of someone who spoke for 6 to 8 minutes, or whatever your speech, 5 to 7, very, very few crutch words. Great job, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Lou. My apologies for overlooking you on the run sheet there. So now that brings us to our vote counter, Monica. Monica, if you could let us know the results of the voting this evening.
Okay, and the winner for best speech was Ben. For the table topics, it was Elaine. And for best evaluator, it was Dagmara.
Thank you very much, Monica. Well done to each and every one of you this evening. And to see if we actually achieved our goal of getting out of the doghouse this evening, I'm hoping we have. But I'd now like to hand to our general evaluator, Graham Cairns. Please welcome Graham Cairns.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be fairly brief because we are very close to time. First up, I thought that there was a good, wide introduction of the ancillary roles tonight, but can I draw to the club's attention that it takes almost 5 minutes for those ancillary roles at the end of the meeting, so I genuinely believe we need to bring them further up into the meeting, or the general evaluator gets squeezed to 90 seconds, which is what I have tonight. David's evaluation pointed to the pacing, which I thought was particularly good, and also pointed to a bit of need for background from Norman, which I thought was the main point that I picked up. I thought David's evaluation that was a little disjointed, and for an experienced Toastmaster, an evaluation should be like a speech. It should have a beginning, a middle, an end, and a reminder of what you have said in the middle, which is what I'm doing here, but it was particularly supportive. Dagmara's evaluation pointed out a good, strong topic and also compared vocal clarity and vocal variety, which are two completely separate things, and I commend her on doing that. What I would suggest to Dagmara is to not only say what is good and bad in the speech that you're evaluating, but say why it is good or bad, because that gives the speaker something specific to take away. But well done, and particularly warm. The topics, great topics tonight from Deborah, although Deborah, I would point out that you actually took up the time of at least one topic with your introductions and segues, and you also gave topics to speakers who were already on the agenda, and John, Adrian, Roger and Andy, who weren't on the agenda, didn't get a chance to speak tonight. So as Topics Master, always look for people who aren't on the agenda and make them speak first. I won't talk about the individual topics except to say that I love the quack, quack, quacking inner critic from Elaine, and Lois is a bit like Tigger to me. Not Pollyanna, always looking on the bright side, but always taking whatever is there and making the most of it. So I commend all of you. Jim, don't apologise. You're a husband. You know how to do this stuff. That's what we do. The Toastmaster tonight, good, warm, not the focus of the meeting, but a fulcrum for the meeting around which the meeting revolves. The job of the Toastmaster is not to be the star, it is to make the presenters the star. Rod did that exceptionally well tonight. One of the things Rod didn't do at the beginning was he didn't tell us about the times. It's important that you do, because we need to know what our times are so that we don't run over time, which by the look of it, I just have. I thought tonight's was a great meeting. I commend everybody for your participation tonight. I hope everybody has had a good time, and I would love to see everybody here again next week. Well done, Rod. Well done, all the speakers. Well done, the Topics Masters. Well done, the Topics presenters. And well done, those of you who won.
Wonderful job as always, Graham. Thank you very much. And with that said, thank you all for allowing me to be your Toastmaster for this evening and this morning. And I'd now like to hand it back to our President, Jimmy Tien. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, it's one of the things I was thinking about before the meeting started, and I think I saw an email, but do we have enough people here to take a vote on the proxy? Do we have to do that? Who we're going to assign a proxy to and how we're going to vote?
We have a proxy?
We certainly have a quorum. Can I ask, are there members of this club who will be going to convention?
Yes.
And do we wish those members to carry our proxy, or do we wish to allocate them to the, well, we don't have a division governor, do we? Because we're an online club. So I guess we've got to take our own proxies. Can I ask? Well, it's up to you, Mr. President.
I think Lou's going.
Well, we do have a member of the club that is actually running.
Yes, I'm aware of that, but I'm not sure that that would be appropriate for them to be carrying the proxies, whereas it might well be appropriate for a member of the club to be carrying the proxies and vote for a director of the club, but we can't.
But no, I'm saying Lou's a member of the club in Chicago. And are you going to direct, how many people are being voted in during this round? I know Region 6 is, Region 8 is, who else?
Isn't it 5? I thought it was always 5.
I'm not
it's
certain.
off years.
Lou? It's usually half the regions.
Yeah.
The other year.
There are 14 regions.
Yeah, I'm not sure of which.
It should be half of them. I'm with Jimmy. But I see we're starting to lose some members, so maybe we can take a quick vote if Lou would be willing to carry our vote.
Quick point of order. Since I'm working with Carol on her campaign, am I ineligible in any way, or does that not matter?
I wouldn't think that it matter. It would matter if it were Carol that were carrying the proxy,
okay.
I think.
Then I'm happy to. And I think Sunny had raised her hand. She's going as well. Sunny, are you a member of the club yet? Oh, yes. Perfect. So we each can carry one. Unless someone else is going as well.
Can't hear you, Sunny.
If you need me, let me know.
Okay. Well, we can either do 2 for Lou or 1 and 1. Doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
We put a motion on the table to provide the proxy to Lou, if Lou and Sonny are both going, you can do one-on-one, but make a motion to designate the proxies in that way.
I make a motion to designate both the proxies to Lou since he's been in part of the club for over a year. I think that's appropriate.
Second that motion.
Right.
All in favor? Lou, Jimmy, you want to ask all in favor?
Aye. Happy to do it.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Lou.
You're welcome.
Okay, that's all I've got, other than I need to schedule a executive team meeting. I'm working on the agenda for that, and I'll get in contact with each of the club officers on that.
Okay. Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I got to go. Have a great day, and I'll see you all next week.
All right,
Sure.
take
Thank
care.
you.
Nice job.
Bye-bye. Andy, give me a call if you want to talk.
Okay.